Greetings and salutations. I haven't done a video in a while. I kind of got fed up with the overall Conan experience and once you see behind the veil and you realize that some of the stuff can be easily fixed, and you realize that you're spending your time on something that has diminishing returns. Into some aspects you stop enjoying the game uh, and you post this stuff on the forums, and many of you may not be aware of this, but the forums have a theme going, and it's the same, let's say, 25 items that get discussed and flushed out, and those same 25 items continuously regurgitate, and it's the same, and you see the same people on the forums having the same discussions about the same 20, for the most part, the same 25 items. And like, like the thrall AI is one of them. um the pets, it blows my mind that the pets all have the same armor, and they're okay with that. They're okay with every single pet having 84 armor. And you know as well as I do, an elephant isn't the equivalent. There's a reason why they have elephant guns, because it takes a significant amount of firepower to get through the hide of an elephant and all the lard on the backside in order to do the damage needed to get that carcass. And so, not every animal is created equal. Like, for example, boars. Boars take a significant high power round, even though they're a small animal, because of the way that their bone structure is, and their hide is so thick. And and none of that reflects. And I realize that Conan isn't a real experience, but it's lazy. It's lazy. And then you get into these aspects where you spend a bunch of time playing the game and you're enjoying it and you're with your friends and you're doing the PvP thing, and you watch somebody raid your base and you realize how retarded the AI is and how bad somebody can cheese your base raid, and you're like, wow, they're literally wiping out, you know 200 hours of my time for their 2-hour investment. And of course, my thralls might kill them once or twice or three times, but eventually they just kill all your thralls. And let's say you have like 20 pets out there, they just gas all your pets, 6 or 7 orbs, and they wipe out hundreds of hours of accumulative farming and resource gathering. And you're like, hey, maybe a rock nose should be immune to bleed and gas because it's a demon. It comes from the volcano. Obviously it doesn't. It's a rock. It's a rock, so it should be immune to gas. And this all of this stuff has been brought up on the forums, and nobody changes it. And in my mind, I imagine them with like 2-hour lunches. And I used to have some relatives that used to work in the gaming industry, and it was all about a popularity contest. And part of me is realistic, and I know that's not the case, but I still imagine 2-hour lunches and sitting around a conference table talking about good ideas instead of doing the hard networking, uh, reaching out to people with those skill sets that to get things done. Be like, hey, brother, I know you're really good at this modding package. Could you do something for us? Could you, if we gave you a little bit of tasking, could you do something, and we'll give you a little kickback, monetize some of this for you. But I just don't see that being done. And then I watch their community live streams, and it's just it's so disheartening. You're like, really? That's what you've done in the last. This is what you've come up with in the last 4 months, and you haven't addressed any of the issues that the 5,000 people have talked about on the community forums. Like, scorpions should be immune to poison, and their damage needs to, instead of stacks and twos, it needs to be stacks and fives. And those pets need to have real relevance as a base defense. And it's kind of, there's this I talked about this in some of my other videos where the the synergy, right? Because it's the core fundamental here is, you're like, yeah, he can complain about not having this certain aspect, or he can he can be frustrated with this one little piece. But my overall arch is the player base. And when you compare the player base to games like Rust, and the reason why I use Rust as the segue, our Ark Survival, our Atlas, is because every single one of these survival genres is created in the Unreal 4 engine. And so when you start comparing apples to apples, and you could argue, well, it's the graphics are different, but they're at its core apples to apples. You can prepare an apple to eat however you want to prepare it to eat, but it's still an apple. And so all of these genres are in the Unreal 4 engine. So you log on and you play some Rust, and you're like, oh shit, their gun mechanics are amazing. Like, I'm not saying the game is better, but their gun mechanics are spot on. And then you log on and you play a little Atlas, and you're like, oh wow, their farming system is amazing. And so you're like, hey, this game, this characteristic in this other game could be a great benefit to the Conan experience, and it's just crickets. You don't even get any. I might spend 2 hours coming up with a video and writing a big ass forum post, and you don't even get the acknowledgement of the community to, community moderator be like, hey, that's, what, I like that idea. I'm going to submit it to the devs, and let it be in their ballpark. I can't say that they'll like it or dislike it, but you can't even get someone to chime in with some constructive criticism, or at least say, what, that might not be the direction they want to take the game in. I mean, I can respect that. I can absolutely respect that. But so a combination of putting out content that is extremely subpar, like they came out with all those gorillas, and they're all the same except the hit points, and you go through the time of farming them all, and then some jackass comes along and kills them all in less than 2 minutes, and you're like, oh shit, those are garbage. Those are garbage. So then there's this very finite, um, play style that you have to do, to where the only thing that matters are thralls in a certain armor set, and then they come out with an annihilator that completely defeats armors, and you're like, oh wow, that's awesome, you just came out with a sword that single-handedly lets somebody PvPing cheese all of your, like, they can get aggro on the 4 thralls, and then let their thrall go in and kill all 50 of your thralls, um, because only 4 thralls will attack at a time. And so, they do little things that just make existing problems worse. And you're like, man, it is so messed up. And don't get me wrong, it's the time. It's the time that you put in. You put in 100 hours or 200 hours to getting something worked out like you want it to work out, and then some cheeseball comes in and cheeses the system, and he might not even take your stuff. Like, I purposely stopped putting my stuff in bases, and I just wanted to make the elaborate base, and I wanted to see what it would take for, and you can watch these videos. I posted them all. I've caught people cheating, caught them using exploits, and um, I wanted to see what it would take to crack into these bases, and I would literally do fence wall foundation, fence wall foundation, fence wall foundation, fence wall foundation, and do a million and a half hit points thick to get through. And I'd be like, this has got to be expensive. And the guy can still get through, Cheeseball can still get through that wall in less than 30 minutes. And there's no amount of thralls that I can put up or any kind of base defense. None of it's relevant. And I'm not saying that the rating mechanic is overpowered. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that their current building system is inadequate to support the explosives and the rating system. In all reality, I think the explosive jars probably should be where the arrows are, and then the arrows should be 50% underneath that. And that's not really my place to say how much damage they should do, but it is it. There's two things that this ties into: is there needs to be systems in place to keep players from getting griefed. Because if your base gets hit every day and there's no amount of building that you can do to keep it protected, it's a broken system, hands down. And so, and I've flushed this out. I was like, this is a better mousetrap. This is a better. There's no way they're getting into this. And then you literally watch them get into it in 40 minutes. They just use more bombs, and you're like, okay, this is a better mousetrap. And yeah, I mean, they might die like 15 times in the process, but that's okay because their bedroll is 20 feet outside your area, and they put up a vault because they think they're gonna get this giant haul from it. And I mean, it is gratifying to know when they got in there they didn't get anything, and then they get pissed, and then they try to do as much damage as possible. Like they try to kill everything because they're pissed. But it, the and then you spend the next 12 hours or 15 hours stuck in farm mode. You got to respec to an encumbrance build, and then you're out there just farming away to try to plug up the walls, so that way, what little valuable stuff you do have is not um, is not exposed. So somebody else can just capitalize on a bad situation, and then so you're stuck in this instead of going out and exploring and doing dungeons and crafting and hanging out with your friends. You're forced into this play loop where you're in repair mode. And so after about a month of just being stuck in this repair loop, I was like, this is stupid. This is stupid. And I would complain about it. I'm going to use the word. I would be vocal and I would complain about it on the forums, and I'm like, there are things that need to take place. I'm not, the current wall structure, all that stuff's fine, but there needs to be an anti-siege, like, iron palisades, steel palisades, that makes it more difficult to get into your structure. Because when you see how easy it is and the fact that they have a 6-hour window to get in, it's crazy. I mean, like my bases were getting good to where I could hold them off. The first one would hold them off for an hour, and I was like, wow, that's actually pretty impressive. And then I can hold them off for 2.5 hours. But it's like, I mean, you can just throw enough retards at a solution, and eventually they figure it out. So my number two thing is they need to refine. The animals need to have like tier 1 animals, they don't get any special skills. Tier 2 animals, they need to have 40% more armor. Tier 3s need to have 60% more armor. Um, Tier 4s, all your greater stuff needs to be comparable to whatever your thrall with heavy armor is. It needs to be a direct correlation, and they need to have unique characteristics like Rock Nose needs to be immune to bleed and gas. Scorpions need to be immune to poison because they give poison, and they need to have a high armor value because they are a scaled um, creature. They need to have that high armor value, and that poison that they dish out because they're greater needs to be different than the tier 1 you get with 1700. All that stuff needs to be tuned. It all needs to be dialed in, and the fact that they haven't done anything is just, I don't know if they're just they don't care, or if they're just that naive and exist inside of a bubble to where they're not having active discussions with the community because this stuff is being vocalized on the forums. And then the second piece is introducing new mechanics like iron palisades, steel palisades, and then also these gates that exist here on the. You can see on the mouse where they've got this gate. It's a two by two block gate. They need to finish the walls out instead of just having the gate. They actually need to make the walls that go with those gates that have the 200,000 hit points. They need to do that across the board. And then I'm so frustrated with doing the desert theme. I paid for a desert theme DLC and they're making it to where it's got the cold resistance. Ah, it's so frustrating. I wish they would stop doing that shit, you know. Either A, just open it up to where whatever material you use, so if you use shave wood, it would be summer. If you used insulated wood, it'd be winter. And it just went with that and just opened them all up instead of forcing me because I'm spending money on something and forcing me to have to use because obviously I don't like to build in the cold. I like to build in the desert. I'm kind of a desert rat myself, so I enjoy that environment. So I pretty much I'm not going to be able to use this stuff because it is a cold weather. Ah, so irritating. So irritating. But I do like the visual graphics. I do like the representation. I do like the weapons that they're coming out with, but it's kind of it's like scratching, it's like having um a bull eye and you're just scratching an itch. It's so it's you're just throwing you're just kind of appeasing those people who don't have real depth and understanding of how the game works, and ultimately, those are the individuals who get raided and then leave because they get griefed and they leave and they're like, it's I'm not spending any more of my time putting into this game, and they don't. And I've seen it time and time again. I've seen hundreds of people super enthused about the game. They get their shit pushed in, and then they're like, I'm done with this. This is stupid. And I realized that that's the game. That's part of the system. But there is no it's too over it's like a 20 20 80 rule. So it's you're 20% defense and then 80%. There aren't any systems in place to hold off that craziness. And then this is my final piece of this. I know I've kind of rambled on, but it just super frustrated with the level of um like not connected. Like I really feel like they exist in a bubble and they don't play the game at all. They're doing their job. They show up in their 9 to 5. They care about doing a good job, but they're not connected into the core systems. They haven't had their shit pushed in on a regular basis and being like, maybe we need to you know have some steel palisades that have double the hit points instead of one bomb blowing up all your palisades and then them having free reign on all, because that was the only physical barrier that I could put up that kept them from climbing on the walls. That's just an analogy, but you get where I'm going with this. um and so I for the most part, I got so pissed with Conan, I just deleted it off my hard drive. I was like, I shouldn't even give these guys the courtesy of my time. I've made over 500 videos on critiques and gameplay, and I've caught people cheating, and everything's been on the up and up. And the forms is so pathetic, and there's no regularity with their live streams. They every week they should be talking about like, what do you guys want to see next? Here's the poll that we have on the forums. Come visit our forums. They should pull that community in, and at a minimum, this game should have a population of 25,000 people. If you go look at the servers right now and you count how many zero population servers there are over 200 zero population servers, and they're completely oblivious to it. They have no idea. They live in a bubble. They don't know that their game is broken as. So the final thing that needs to take place is the server swing is you get 6 hours of rating, and then you have the rest of the day to recover. And the problem with that is like, I have a job, I have a career, I have things that I have to do, I have obligations and responsibilities, and I can't. And for the time zone that I'm in, that rating time is at 9 a.m. to 3, and that is right in the middle of the workday. There's nothing I can do about it, and so I basically have to eat that raid every day except the weekend, and then they DDoS the server on the weekend, and it's so frustrating. And they need to fragment that, because if you figure a day is 30 minutes, so basically the way the timeline works out is you get to raid once a month in that 30-minute day. If you were to take 30 minutes and divide that in by that 18-hour window, it's like you get to raid once a month, and they need to micro it down to where if a game time is 30 minutes, you get to raid once a week, and so it works out to where it's a 10 and 2. So for every 10 hours, there's 2 hours of raiding. And so if you build a good base and you got lots of defenses, you know, they might not have they have to think about what they want to do and have resources and get at your base ahead of time instead of stumbling across it and then having 6 hours to be completely retarded against all your building and assets and thralls and completely wiping you out. But if it's a 10 and 2, it kind of gives it to where if they can't get through the base in the 2 hours, then they got to kind of strategize a little bit better and come back the next day. Strategize a little bit better, come back the next day. And they got to sharpen their skill instead of just throwing mud at the wall for 6 hours. But that I believe that the raid time improvement would um, change things dramatically and then bring the population back, because that's my ultimate goal, is bring back the population, and then that would generate more revenue. They would start selling more DLCs. They'd get more community involvement. They'd get more modders. I mean, there's nothing but good that comes from an inflated population. But I can tell that they've pulled all their skilled and talented people, put them on Dune, and pretty much abandoned Conan. And that's why they're coming out with knives. That's why you get knives, is because and all this stuff is just reskinned walls. Like there's no new 3D modeling. If there is, it's very little. And instead of fixing these core systems, those they need to come up with a back to the server thing and the tenant 2. They need to come up with I did like 5 videos on option B. They need to come up with another option for the servers. Instead of having 200 dead servers, they need to sit down and think about how the game can be played in or maybe my tenant 2 is option B, because right now you have 3 solutions. There needs to be a fourth option. um but there's so many things, and they just so many things that they just live in that bubble, and either A, they don't give a shit, or B, they don't have the technical skill to handle it, or C, they're so blinded that they think the game is in a healthy state, while their population has gone from on an average, it would be between 12 and 15 is like your average, and it has dwindled down. I logged on the other day and I checked it. It was 3,500 people. They have literally let their game die because of poor community interaction, inability to commit to any of that stuff that's on the forums. Um, it's just a joke. And so lately, I've been playing No Man's Sky, and there are a lot of things in No Man's Sky that I really enjoy. I do. It's a beautiful game. The space exploration has been keeping me. I put 100 hours into it in the last couple of weeks. Um, it doesn't have that same level of community interaction that Conan has, that I like, but it's the ships and the farming is awesome. I would love to see farming pins where you can plant your flowers that you put in the world, and I'd like to see an alchemy worked in. I see that oil that they put out in this patch, and I just get pissed. I was like, it's so stupid. Like, really, that's their big thing, is oil. you know like, they're so disconnected. Well, anyways, I don't mean for this video to be negative, but hopefully I share some insight on what my perspective is, and maybe somebody will watch this who has some influence or who could make some changes, and in 6 months from now, maybe they'll fix themselves. Maybe they'll realize that they have a player base of 1,200, and they've completely ran something great into the ground from lack of community. Hire some interns. Start a an education program. Hired some interns and outsource some of that work. Network. And I don't mean like programming networking, IP networking. I'm talking about people skills. Get those people who have passion about your project to help you flesh out your project. But I was gonna play this video and do comment on it, and I pretty much rolled through my rant. I'm gonna upload this, but as always, what's funny is I'm almost at 100 subscribers. Um, but I don't know what I'm gonna do with Conan. I haven't even put it back on the machine. I'm so pissed. Usually I break down all the systems and they don't fix anything. They don't fix anything at all. I got 100 wish list videos, 100 of them, and some of them are like a year old. And I go back and look through that, and it's like there's so much shit on there that needs to be fixed. Like the vault system needs to be revisited. The vaults are a disaster. There's a storage solution. All that stuff is hot garbage that needs to be revisited and reworked. Um, that it's you know this game, Funcom should hold this game on a higher plateau than their other content because it's what saved them from bankruptcy. They should put this game in a different category than the other stuff that they're coming out with because this is what had brought them back from the brink of death. This game is their savior, and they should recognize that and um, always make it their priority. It's a no-brainer, and they have forsaken it for other stuff. And the other, like I bought that Conan Unconquered. Man, it's garbage, 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 garbage. And people were very vocal on the community forums about what needed to be fixed. That game has not received a single patch. I have not seen any updates on that. I haven't seen any news or feedbacks. It was a fire and forget. And you know, shame on you. Shame on you, Funcom. Shame on you. Like, how come that game isn't fixed? How come they haven't rebalanced it? Um, yeah, and so I'm not buying any more of Funcom stuff because I know that they can't follow through with anything, and they exist in a bubble. But as always, let me know what you think. This might be too critical. I have a feeling that a lot of people are going to get upset about what I'm saying, but everything I'm saying is absolutely true, and it might sting a little bit, but those systems are broken, and they either A are too lazy or B they're in denial. I don't know, but yeah, I'm gonna start playing some. I'm getting ready to log on to No Man's Sky, and I'm gonna plant some bushes. I'm gonna plant some bushes. Um, as always, thank you for watching.